When we find ourselves in a world that is dominated by first impressions and impulses, it's very uncommon not to find myself asking about what is real. It's no wonder why so many of us struggle to keep up with society, when the solution often is to keep expanding an ever more complex system to understand. It is scary, but more importantly, what is the horror story of Western society? When we see something that scares us, we don't really associate it with more than a scare per se. But from a societal perspective, there's often a bigger story to be told. Dracula, for instance, was partly inspired by English people's fear of immigration and racial pollution. Another famous example would be after Japan got hit by the two bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Godzilla was made. And ever since the pandemic, a very simple premise has gained a pretty big audience. And that very thing is the backrooms. If you by any chance don't know what the backrooms are, here is a quick history lesson with Maria. So cheer her up, everyone.
As written in a 4chan post by an anonymous user on May 14, 2019, quote, "If you're not careful, and you no-clip out of reality in the wrong areas, you'll end up in the backrooms, where it's nothing but the stink of old moist carpet, the madness of mono yellow, the endless background noise of fluorescent lights at maximum hum buzz, and approximately 600 million square miles of randomly segmented empty rooms to be trapped in. God save you if you hear something wandering around nearby, because it sure as hell has heard you."
The backrooms may seem like an original idea, but it's kinda rewritten story of the Minotaur, which was a creature from Greek mythology, a man with a bull head trapped in a maze. However, I don't think it was written for the same purpose. The popularity of the backrooms probably comes from the fact that it's a simple idea but effective. It's interesting because it can simply be modified into your own personal story, your own purgatory or hellscape if you will. However, what I really want to talk about is the core of it all. The building blocks of the backrooms. Liminal spaces. The word liminal comes from the Latin word limon, a threshold below which a stimulus is not perceived or is not extinguished from another. It sort of means that in order for something to be liminal, it must be an in-between state where the function of a thing or a place is unrecognizable from everything else present. In context to the real world, the in-between state can be the long hallway to your hotel room or an airport. Before you went to the airport, you are probably home, so everything between that is a liminal space. However, I think this term is outdated because this is not the driving force when people consider if something is liminal or not. It's more about how we interact, or rather the lack of interaction. The lack of people and isolation is the most obvious one. See, a really famous example of a liminal space is Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. And without going too much in depth with that movie, I don't think he made these shots with the purpose of only being a in-between state. And it's not like I don't know what a hotel hallway is for. Even if you have not seen the movie, you get the feeling that there's something behind every blind corner. It's the fear of not knowing everything, or what we thought we knew is incorrect. This is the main issue that the movie Truman Show captures very well. The Truman Show is about a man who grows up in a TV show, not knowing that his entire life is a lie, with the solely purpose of being entertainment. By the end of the movie, he reaches the end of the world and captures these very liminal vibes. But this has nothing to do with a in-between state. It's more the lack of expression to something as surreal as this that gives us a unsatisfying conclusion in context to what we see. It's hard to pinpoint what surrealism makes us feel, but it is somehow a very familiar feeling for many of us. I will talk more about the familiar later, but first, to clarify the importance of these images, I want to quote the Danish architect Carl Emil Kåre. I think it has become popular because so many people feel lost in modern society and inhabit a liminal space in their own life, always on the way to becoming something, but never really being someone. The reason why I think this is important to understand is that things around us change, but not necessarily us. We constantly get reminded of how much we need to fit in order to get all the benefits, likes, number of friends, the beauty standard. But in which way does that leave room for ourselves? Especially for this generation or the generation after us. It's very easy for influencers to manipulate us, because they know we don't know who we are, but they do know that we want to fit in. So if one of your friends is a local Paul fan, that is a pretty bad sign, man. The idea of owning identity has become extremely hard to obtain because of the way we structure our attention. When we finally get free time, we don't really work on ourselves anymore because we have worked, so now it's way more easy to get a bit of dopamine and watch a bunch of TikToks or YouTube videos. I know the last one was not really a good advertisement for my video, but hear me out. The escape plan of trying not to fit in contributes to a really bad solution to the first problem. If we can't fit in, we must be unique. It makes sense that we want to achieve our goals and feel rewarded for doing so. But if you're just striving to be unique, then you just have become a recreation of your environment. And if you try to force it, you miss the opportunity to be you. The real solution is to stop measuring the reward for doing something. Otherwise, you'll never be able to focus on more things than yourself. It is normal to think you have escaped the idea of fitting in, but the way you end up valuing things are all about how beneficial they are. That is how all these gurus on YouTube earn their share, selling a book about beneficial ideas and a community with a striving desire to find themselves. A very productive, above all, point of view. The same things can be said about the world we inhabit. If you take a close look at all these skyscrapers, can you distinguish one from the other and tell me where we are in the world? It's us that build the things around us. So it's no wonder why that the very things we build lack identity. We are all connected now to this one big system called the internet. So the culture that used to be ours is now everyone's right to consume. We want to be a part of a community so we can belong somewhere, but more importantly, so we can separate one group from the other. It unfortunately does not give us a better understanding of our own individualism. That is our own search, and some people are in some regards trying to see how free they are to express that. Sometimes the past can feel like a better alternative, but we can never have something as real as the present and have a retrospective view at the same time. Like after a breakup, we desire the things we can have. We create emotional bonds and thoughts, not only with people, but the places we grew up with. And if you come around a school or a shopping mall you have a emotional bond with, it becomes this liminal stage where it once was your life and now is someone else's or just forgotten. I think the reason why it can feel like a totally different life is because we are not the same person, but we still have the same emotional bond. So it feels like a dream, but we know it was real. It creates a desire to go back to a world where we knew everything, a safe place. But we have to accept that we only feel this way in a retrospective view. It's not because we did not appreciate the time we had. We build our lives by the very things we consume. So when the things that were a center of our attention is fading away, we get lost. We get stuck in a liminal mindset where we don't really know what defined us once it's gone. What I can conclude so far is that liminal spaces reflect our own lack of a true identity. We don't know what the backrooms are just by looking at them, and we certainly can't have a conversation with a wall, as fun as they may sound. We can't talk about the lack of identity without the obvious emptiness. Liminal spaces are familiar, but it becomes an unfamiliar circumstance. It's hard to pinpoint the exact reason why a strange place sometimes feels as familiar as a street outside your window. To back up my thoughts on it, I'll quote the New York-based mindset expert Kirsten Franklin. we usually only notice it when something is less than normal, and that we don't like things when they are unpredictable. The thing is, we often think we are in control of our surroundings when we are not. It's a great feeling when we don't have to worry about what comes next, and we can just watch our favorite show, but it is the last episode. It can feel like saying goodbye to an old friend. It creates a psychological liminal space. There's a reason why traditions are so important to us. It's the opposite of being lost. It's no wonder why there's so many remakes and reboots of old media. The concept of lost media is literally digging up old memories so you can put the pieces together again and solve a mystery with a community. A tradition can only work if it feels predictable. So when you see Walter White's lab, but nobody's cooking, it feels familiar, but in an unfamiliar circumstance. Something I wondered about for a very long time is why childhood memories feel so liminal. There's a lot of images floating around the liminal space community of playrooms and pool rooms like this. From a child's perspective, everything both seemed bigger and were bigger, and everything was a new concept that you need to learn first to understand. We don't really have a sense of tradition just yet. So when I traveled to a new country for the first time, it felt like an entire new world. I had no idea what to expect, and I did not know what I was experiencing. Therefore, nostalgia can be really nice, but often we mistake the past for something else. We desire to go back in time and rewatch our favorite show for the first time again, but we expect it to be as good as we think we remember it was. I think it is truly self-destroying to compare the past to the present day with a reimagined past. So please stop making sequels to old franchises. There has to be an end to this. A lot of liminal spaces come from a time before I was born, but through media I have seen enough to know how the 80s looked like, for better or worse, but I only see the highlights for that era, because that's how we want to remember the past, when the present seems meaningless. Nostalgia only works in relation to something that is lost. This feeling of being lost in a world that is forever changing, and a one that constantly gives us reminders of the golden time, that being your grandpa or local politician. All this makes us fed up and utterly confused, something that James Bridle can clarify. We struggle to understand a world that technology is making ever more complex, leaving us alone and confused. He also mentioned in an interview that this confusion about how big complex systems around the world works is why conspiracy theories are on the rise, leaving us in a world where we know less and less about it. Therefore, I think liminal spaces are a direct reflection of how the world seems like. To make a bit brighter and more detailed conclusion, I made a questionnaire a while ago where I asked people which feelings they got when they saw these pictures from a list of emotions that I made. Originally, I wanted to make a more detailed analysis of what people thought about liminal spaces, but I did not get a lot of answers, so I could not really conclude anything from the answers that I got. So to the answers. The most common was nostalgia, feeling lonely and lost. In a respectful 4 and 5 place were familiar and curious. Where it gets really interesting though are the answer to this question. If you were to relax, which one would you choose? 53.5 chose image 2 over 1. But when I asked about which one would make you feel more safe, 69% chose image 2 compared to the 53.5% when I asked the previous question. Why, you may ask? I think it's because the second image has a very recognizable design. It looks like a normal living room besides all the toys. You can imagine the roads through the windows, even though you can't see them. The first image is first of all really hard to pinpoint where we are in the house. What is the functionality of the room and how high are we up? How big is the room? It seems really relaxing, but it is uncertain how the room operates, so to speak. And that very thing creates anxiety. It feels like a dream in the way that how dream operates, like dream logic. Things are recognizable, but it don't make sense in the way it's like constructed. Like these 3D images of pool rooms. The angle also seems to be a bit weird, like taken from a child's perspective. That is the vibe or tone I get from this picture. It all seems a bit wrong. Like a recreation of a blurry memory. Nostalgia at its best. I truly think the ghost story of our current time is the backrooms. An endless threshold where nothing ever changes or ends. Either we can't follow what is going on, or we are unable to interact in a way that gives us meaning. If the walls of the backrooms could speak, they won't say anything, because they are a reflection of how we interact with the world right now. We can't just live in the real world anymore, because everything becomes digital in an ever-expanding internet. If we don't feel special, there's no reason to do anything. So what should we do? A close friend of mine told me that she thinks that if we want to make meaningful memories, we need to make use of all of our senses, because we forget to truly enjoy the present. Otherwise, we make a big part of our lives a threshold, where we just are for a period of time before we rush to be somewhere else, or become someone else. So remember to breathe in the air. So I kinda forgot to make an outro, so I'll just make that now. So thank you so much for watching the video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed making this video and really getting deep into liminal spaces and the backrooms. I hope also that you'll discuss this in the comment section as well. Either discuss this whole theme or criticize and give me feedback. I will appreciate that very much. Also, if you enjoyed some of the music in the video, there's a link in the description to my music if you want to hear more. With that being said, I hope you see each other very soon. Bye bye.